Evan's face pressed close to the car window the moment I pulled into the lot, his hand snapping the lock before I even stepped out. The boy's shoulders trembled as he leaned toward me. "Uncle David? Something's wrong in there." The strain in his voice cut through any plans I had for the evening. A slight pull on the door let me crack it open just enough to speak. "Who scared you?" He shook his head, fast eyes darting toward the restaurant entrance. No words came next, only a hard gesture telling me not to walk toward the main doors. That wasn't a reaction a kid fakes. Something had rattled him deep. A couple stepped past us on their way to the hostess stand. Evan edged away as if their presence might expose him. When they were out of hearing range, he pushed closer. "They're talking about you. About money. About tonight." Those 6 words stopped my breath for a second. Questions crowded my mind, but before any of them reached my mouth, my phone vibrated again and again in my jacket. Laura had texted, "Where are you? Everyone's waiting." The screen lit up with her name, but Evan tugged at my sleeve before I could answer. "Please, don't sign anything." He said it low, almost whispering, yet the urgency behind it landed like a blow. Evan wasn't dramatic by nature. Whatever he picked up must have sounded serious enough to send him running out here. His eyes met mine, full of confusion he didn't know how to carry. The urge to reassure him rose and fell quickly. It was clear he needed me to listen, not explain. "What did you hear?" came out quieter than intended. He stepped back instead of replying, moving toward the rear door of the restaurant. One hand reached for the metal handle, urging me to follow that route instead of the main walkway. I didn't understand why, but the look on his face told me to trust him. My feet followed as he slipped through the service door. The narrow corridor on the other side stretched ahead, muffled noise from the party drifting through the closed walls. Evan pointed toward a corner and then vanished around it, too quick for me to stop him. Evan. The name left my mouth, but he was already gone, leaving me with a trail of warnings and a rising suspicion I couldn't shake. A few steps forward brought me closer to the bend in the hall. Words floated toward me, sharp, hushed, unmistakably familiar. Emily's voice carried first. "He'll sign. Tonight is the only way." Another voice answered her, firm and confident. "Mark, he won't make a scene. Not in front of everyone." Hearing the two of them speak about me as though I were some obstacle to negotiate with snapped something loose in my chest. Their tone didn't carry fear or doubt, only expectation. A footfall echoed somewhere behind me, pulling me out of the moment. I eased back against the wall, not wanting them to see me yet. My fingers brushed the phone, still buzzing in my pocket. Another message from Laura, no doubt. Not one part of me could step forward now. Emily's voice rose again, closer this time. "Dad needs to stay on script. No changes." That sentence anchored me to the floor. Emily's voice carried down the corridor before I even reached the corner. "He won't say no if it's tonight. Everyone's here. He won't dare." The words landed one by one, sharp and sure. Mark followed with a tone that suggested the matter was already settled. "The transfer papers are printed. Just be calm." That was enough to start a chain of possibilities in my mind. They weren't discussing a birthday surprise. Those sentences came from people arranging something behind closed doors, expecting compliance. Footsteps scraped lightly from the opposite end. Evan emerged, tension etched across his face. Both hands lifted in a soft plea for me to stay back. He didn't speak. The warning in his expression said enough. Any movement from me might expose him or force a confrontation he wasn't ready for. My shoulder leaned toward the wall to steady myself. Words drifted from the corner again, short phrases about shared accounts, signatures, and keeping things from Laura. The dismissal in their voices unsettled me more than the content itself. They talked as if they held the authority to decide what belonged to me. A sudden burst of noise from a side door broke the moment. One of the restaurant staff pushed through carrying a tray. Music and laughter spilled out before he slipped back in, closing the door with an apologetic glance. The noise startled Emily and Mark. Their conversation stopped abruptly. Evan retreated a step. I kept still. They turned, slightly scanning for movement. A shift backward put me out of their line of sight just as they crossed the hall and made their way toward the party. The faint sound of Emily's heels tapping down the corridor slowly faded. Evan reappeared only long enough to give me a last look, urging caution, then disappeared toward a service exit. No explanation. No chance for me to reassure him. Walking toward the opposite end, I slipped through a different entryway into the banquet area. The crowd carried on oblivious. Conversations overlapped, plates clinked, and people moved from table to table, greeting Laura. Nothing about the place suggested the storm brewing beneath the surface. A chair sat open at the far end. I settled into it, feeling every muscle tight. A waiter passed by with appetizers, mumbling something cheerful. My attention barely shifted. A flash from my phone screen caught my eye. Carla Henderson's name appeared above a brief message. Checking in. Did you review the changes we discussed last month? Her timing pressed a knot deeper into my stomach. Those revisions were supposed to protect what I earned, not hand it over to anyone who asked for it. Leaving them unresolved now felt reckless. Laura made her way across the room, greeting friends. She smiled warmly at people, lifting her hand in thanks every time someone congratulated her on the birthday milestone. Her gaze swept past me without catching the stiffness in my posture. Emily approached a moment later, wearing a polished expression. "Dad, can we talk later?" The question wasn't really a request. It sounded like a scheduled step in whatever plan she had in motion. Before any response formed, Mark appeared behind her with a glass in hand. "David, let me get you a drink." He extended the glass and rested his palm on my shoulder like we were old friends sharing good news. The gesture carried a rehearsed warmth. Something practiced. Something meant to nudge rather than comfort. The weight of it all pressed down in a way that made the celebration feel far away. Evan's warning, the whispers in the hallway. Carla's message, each piece slotted into place, urging me to stay alert. Emily didn't linger. She drifted off to another group, laughing as though nothing had happened. Mark lingered a second longer, studying me, then stepped away when I didn't lift the glass. Guests continued offering toasts and small talk. Laura posed for a photo with two cousins. A few people waved me over, but my legs refused to move. Whatever Emily planned wasn't impulsive. She had told someone earlier she expected everything to go smoothly. That meant preparation, not speculation. A busboy delivered more plates to the buffet, brushing past my chair. The motion snapped me back to the present. My fingers hovered over the screen of my phone, tempted to call Carla for clarity, then dropped away. This wasn't the place. Another message buzzed. Someone from the table waved for me to join a group picture. I rose halfway, then paused. The crowd's laughter blended with the clatter of utensils, yet none of it eased the tension building beneath my ribs. Laura finally reached my side. "You okay?" she asked, adjusting a napkin on the table. "Just needed a minute, came out steady enough." She nodded and went to greet another friend. Mark watched from a distance. A server approached Emily with a neat stack of documents clipped together. The corner of the packet shifted as she adjusted it, revealing a familiar law firm logo. That glimpse tightened the knot already forming in my stomach. Those weren't birthday cards or guest lists. A woman from Laura's circle drifted over with a drink in hand. "Your daughter's excited," she said lightly. I turned toward her. She told us she's about to manage the family assets. Big step for her. The words left a dull thud in my chest. So this gathering wasn't improvised. Emily had been talking, preparing, positioning herself for something she assumed would go her way. Before any reply found its shape, Mark pulled out the empty chair beside me and settled in as though we'd arranged to meet. His voice stayed low. Just a simple formality for Laura's birthday. No reaction came from me, and that silence rattled him. His knee bounced once. He tried again. It won't take long. Emily worked hard getting everything ready. Still nothing. The lack of agreement unsettled him more than open disagreement would have. Across the room, Emily raised her hand. We have something meaningful to finalize tonight. Guests paused mid-conversation. A few clapped automatically, expecting a sentimental toast or perhaps a gift reveal. Laura looked surprised but pleased, unaware of what lay beneath her daughter's tone. The pressure around me sharpened. A thought crept in. Had I failed to communicate enough, left too many decisions unspoken, created room for assumptions to grow? It wasn't guilt exactly, more the uneasy sense that my attempts to keep peace had allowed expectations to warp into entitlement. My phone vibrated again. Carla's name filled the screen. I let it ring, but when the call rolled to voicemail, her voice played loud enough for nearby guests to hear. David, remember what we discussed. Don't sign anything you haven't reviewed. Emily glanced over instantly. Her expression flickered through irritation, surprise, and something sharper. She masked it with a smile, though the edges refused to soften. Mark shifted forward as if ready to intervene. You probably should take that call, he murmured. I shook my head. The urge to stand and leave surged through me. My legs pushed back from the table, but Emily materialized beside me before I could move far. Dad, everyone's waiting. Please don't make this difficult. Her hand wrapped around my forearm, gentle at first, then firmer when she sensed resistance. Conversations nearby slowed, not stopping entirely, but dipping enough to signal attention drifting our way. I didn't know we were finalizing anything tonight, I said. It's important, she replied, keeping her voice measured. And it's for the family. A couple at a neighboring table watched us openly. Another group glanced over between bites of food. None of them understood the context, but the tension drew them in regardless. Public settings have a way of magnifying private disputes. Mark rose and placed himself slightly behind Emily, creating an arc around me. Everyone's here already, he said. Might as well finish the paperwork. My jaw tightened. I could feel the walls closing in, not literally, but through expectation layered on expectation. Each sentence from them narrowed the room. Emily's grip lingered. Mark hovered too close. Guests leaned in without even noticing they were doing it. Evan's warning returned to me with sudden clarity. Don't sign anything. The boy had seen or heard enough to send him out to the parking lot in fear. Whatever they planned, it involved more than a misunderstanding. Emily eased her hold, but stayed close. Let's not drag this out. It'll mean a lot to Mom. Laura, still greeting a cousin across the room, remained unaware of what was unfolding. That made it worse. They were using her celebration not with her knowledge, but as leverage. My chair scraped the floor as I finally stood. The attention that action drew made the space feel even tighter. Emily didn't release me until she felt no choice. Dad, she whispered, don't do this. Her tone wasn't pleading. It was controlling. A daughter accustomed to shaping outcomes and expecting no resistance. Emily lifted the packet of papers as if she were unveiling a family heirloom. Her voice rose over the room. Dad will finalize the transfer tonight. Polite applause followed from guests who had no idea what they were clapping for. Laura's eyes widened, startled, but Emily stepped in before any confusion settled. It's what Mom wanted. The words cut through the din. A few people nodded approvingly, assuming this was some touching family gesture. My hand reached for the documents more out of reflex than agreement. A quick scan of the first page showed a transfer of ownership assets routed into an account under Emily and Mark's names. Another page listed revisions to beneficiary designations. Several terms I'd discussed with Carla had been altered or removed. Each line carried an unfamiliar twist. Further down, a block of text had been added about durable authority. My chest tightened. None of this reflected what I'd ever considered. Turning to the back, a chill moved up my spine. A signature sat there, a rough imitation of mine. Mark leaned in with a whisper. It's just a copy for the ceremony. The real signing will be official later. My fingers pressed against the paper. Not one person at that table seemed troubled by a forged signature, least of all the man trying to soothe me with that casual lie. Emily watched, searching my expression for compliance. Her smile slipped as she read the change in my face. Laura reached toward the documents. What is all this? Before she could gather the pages, Mark lifted a hand to intercept her, a gesture meant to look polite, but carrying the weight of control. Let David walk through it first. Around us, the room kept celebrating, but the energy around our table sagged. Where laughter had been, uncertainty crept in. People sensed a shift, even if they didn't understand it. I placed the documents on the table. No speech, no outburst. The silence alone cooled everything around me. Emily's voice softened while still pushing forward. Dad, this is for the family. We planned everything. Planned. The word lingered. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a coordinated effort. Laura tried again. Emily, you should slow down. He hasn't agreed to. Mark slid slightly into her path tone, calm but final. Let him finish. The room seemed to tilt for a moment. My chair scraped a few inches back as I rose. Emily reached for my arm. Dad, you can't walk away from this. That plea carried frustration more than concern. Her fingers tightened, then loosened when she realized she was making a scene. Guests at nearby tables glanced over. Laura called after me, but the words blended into the buzz of conversation. I folded the papers once and walked toward the service corridor, ignoring Mark's attempt to speak, and Emily's quick steps behind me. Their voices blurred into the background, replaced by a growing certainty that I needed distance before this escalated further. A busboy carrying menus moved aside to let me pass. Near the front counter, an employee from earlier noticed the documents in my hand and approached with hesitation. Sir, someone tried to use your card earlier but failed. The note he slipped me was small, written in hurried strokes. My name. A declined attempt. A timestamp that matched the hour before the party began. Air caught in my throat. The forged signature wasn't the first step they'd already tried moving money. Laura called my name again from across the room. Emily's voice tangled with hers. Mark told someone everything was fine. None of it registered clearly. The parking lot felt colder than when I'd arrived. My phone came out before the door even shut. The transaction history loaded slowly, then revealed 2 failed withdrawal attempts from earlier that afternoon. Both requests aimed at one of my secondary accounts. Both denied for ID mismatch. A pulse hammered at my temples as the pattern sharpened. Shoes scraped the pavement behind me. Evan hurried over, breath unsteady. I'm sorry, he said, hands twisting together. I didn't know what else to do. A response formed but softened before leaving my mouth. You did enough. He waited for more, but none came. The boy already carried more than he should. Keeping him out of the details felt like the only decent thing left. My phone rang. A number from the bank. Mr. Mercer, a staff member, said someone submitted a request this morning to update account authorization. We need to confirm you approved it. I didn't. A brief pause followed. We still have the documents they presented, including a copy of the signature. You may want to review them with our branch manager. A meeting was set for the following morning. The call ended with a tone that suggested concern, but not surprise. These employees saw attempts like this more often than people assumed. Evan watched my expression shift as the conversation unfolded. "Is someone in trouble?" he asked. "Head home, Evan. I'll handle it." He hesitated, wanting to stay near me, then nodded and made his way toward his mother's car. His small wave lingered in the corner of my eye. Laura appeared from the restaurant entrance, calling my name as she approached. "What happened in there?" she asked, glancing toward the documents in my hand. Emily stormed off. She wouldn't talk to me. "Let me sort this out first," I said. "I'll explain after I get everything verified." Her mouth tightened. She's been acting strange for weeks. Snappy. Secretive. I thought it was stress. There was little comfort I could offer without opening the entire situation wide in the middle of the parking lot. "I'll take care of it," slipped out in a calm tone that didn't match the weight inside me. Laura touched my arm once, then stepped back, reading enough in my face to know the conversation was done for now. When the car door shut, and I sat alone, the voicemail icon blinked. Carla's message played again in that measured voice of hers. "David, remember what we discussed. Don't sign anything you haven't reviewed." Her tone wasn't dramatic, just firm the way someone speaks when they've seen too many families crumble over money and assumptions. Those words struck differently now. She'd warned me a month ago that blurred lines make room for manipulation. The steering wheel felt unfamiliar under my hands. Years of decisions flashed through my mind, moments when I'd let Emily take shortcuts, times I'd paid off her mistakes without asking questions, days when convenience outweighed boundaries. I'd told myself those gestures kept the peace. All they did was teach her that I'd bend whenever needed. My phone lit again. Mark's name appeared this time. I let it ring, but the voicemail notification buzzed right away. "The family expects you to finish what you started. No shame. No hesitation. Just entitlement." Another call followed. And another. He left more messages, voice tightening each time, as though my lack of response inconvenienced him. The car engine came alive beneath my hand. The road ahead blurred slightly, not from motion, but from the realization that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an organized push to take control of what I'd built. Streetlights passed one after another as I drove through Grand Rapids, my mind running through scenarios I hadn't wanted to consider. Emily forging a signature. Someone attempting to drain an account. A bogus authorization form submitted hours before the party. All of it layered together, forming something far darker than family tension. Calls from Mark kept coming. I muted the phone. Letting his voice spill into the car would only add fuel to something already burning hot. The night stretched ahead while I drove, without turning on the radio, without answering a single notification. My thoughts circled, tangled, and kept circling again. Questions about how far Emily had gone, how long she'd planned this, how much she felt owed, and why I hadn't noticed the shift sooner. A red light halted the car near a familiar intersection. My hand hovered over the phone again before pulling away. No answers would come from that device tonight. A line I'd once heard replayed in my head. "If you don't set boundaries, someone else will." The truth of it pressed deep as I turned onto my street. Home finally appeared at the end of the block porch, light still on. I parked, stepped out, and let the door shut behind me. Mark's muted calls continued buzzing through my pocket as I walked toward the house, each vibration reminding me that this was only the first crack in something much larger. The bank opened at 9, and I stepped through the doors as the staff unlocked them. A young account manager greeted me and guided me toward a conference room near the back. The branch manager joined us with a tablet in hand and a folder tucked under his arm. "Mr. Mercer, thank you for coming in so quickly," he said. "We reviewed your account activity from yesterday. There's something we need to show you." He tapped the tablet. A video loaded. The timestamp marked early morning hours before the party. Emily entered the frame, holding a stack of documents. She approached the teller counter with practiced confidence. My breath stalled as her voice played through the small speaker. "My father can't sign today," she said. "He has severe joint pain. He asked me to submit the authorization on his behalf." The teller in the recording asked for my ID. Emily produced a photocopy and pointed at the signature on the form. "He signed it last night," she insisted. The manager paused the video. "This concerns us," he said carefully. "We've seen forged authorizations before, but usually not from immediate family." The account manager slid the physical copy across the table. "Please confirm whether this is your signature." A glance told me everything. The slant leaned too far, left the pressure inconsistent, the loops forced. Someone had practiced it enough to get close, but not enough to fool me. "No," I said. The account manager nodded, already expecting that answer. The teller rejected the withdrawal because the ID didn't match. "She mentioned your daughter said she would return with the proper documents." Hearing it stated so plainly made the room feel smaller. Emily had intended to try again. There was no hesitation in her posture on the footage, no sign of remorse, not even uncertainty. She acted as if she had every right to my accounts. A strange mixture rose in my chest, relief at finally seeing the truth instead of guessing, and something much heavier. Knowing your own child has crossed that line burns in a way nothing else does. The branch manager folded his hands. "You need to update your security process immediately. We can help you set up restricted access and a secondary verification method. We also recommend preparing for a meeting with our security department." "What happens now?" I asked. "We file an internal fraud alert," he said. "From there we document everything and keep a record should law enforcement need it later." The words landed with a weight I hadn't prepared for. Part of me wanted to defend Emily, insist she made a mistake, say this wasn't who she was. Another part knew I couldn't lie for her. The manager stepped out to retrieve additional forms, leaving me with the account manager. She lowered her voice. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this. These situations, they're never just financial. They hurt in ways paperwork can't capture." The simple honesty in her tone nearly cracked something in me. I thanked her and signed the documents to secure my accounts. Once outside, I sat in the car with the engine running but didn't pull out of the parking space. The video replayed in my mind, Emily leaning forward, her voice calm, her story smooth. She had rehearsed it. Minutes passed without me noticing. Then my hand reached for the phone, dialing the one person who understood this world better than anyone I knew. Carla answered on the second ring. "David." "You all right?" "No," I said, and told her everything. She didn't interrupt. She listened with the kind of focus that only comes from handling other people's crises for years. "Here's what you need to do," she said once I finished. "Lock down every account. Change your power of attorney arrangements. And David, get a new attorney today. A clean one. Not anyone Emily knows." The clarity in her voice steadied the shaking in my hands. "Your daughter crossed a legal line," she added. "This isn't a disagreement, it's fraud. You have to treat it as such." A message buzzed through mid-call. Emily's name lit up at the top of the screen. The text preview showed enough. "Dad, we need to fix what you ruined last night." The phrasing said everything. No apology, no recognition of what she'd done. Just blame. Carla heard the vibration. Is that her? Yes. Don't answer. Not yet. Let your attorney handle the next step. We spoke for several more minutes, her outlining steps, me noting each one mechanically. The new attorney's office sat above a dental clinic on Monroe Avenue, a modest space with framed licenses lining the walls. The attorney, Malcolm Price, listened without interrupting, while the forged authorization form rested on his desk. His brow tightened as he read each page, flipping them carefully, as if handling evidence. "This isn't minor, Mr. Mercer," he said. "Your daughter submitted a fraudulent document and attempted to use it for financial gain. You have grounds to file a formal fraud report." His tone remained steady, factual, free of judgment. That made it easier to hear, though not easier to accept. "I'm not ready to file anything yet," came out slowly. "I want this handled correctly." "Then the next step is documentation," he replied. "Every attempt, every signature, any communication tied to these actions. We build the record first. Filing can come later." Malcolm scanned the signature again. She practiced this. It didn't happen on impulse. Those words hit harder than anything else said so far. A vibration from my phone broke the silence. An email from Carla appeared with attachments. She'd forwarded messages Emily had sent her weeks ago, questions about moving assets between family members without needing the primary signer present. Another message asked about streamlining ownership transfers when time is tight. Seeing those lines removed the last hope that this had grown spontaneously. A plan had been forming long before I noticed any signs. Malcolm looked over the emails and nodded. "This supports the pattern." She researched methods before attempting it. Leaving the office after signing a stack of protective measures, I felt something shift internally. Not anger, not grief, but a kind of resolve. Years spent smoothing conflicts, bending rules, covering debts came back in pieces. I'd thought being flexible made me supportive. All it did was open the door for someone else to define the limits. The car took me across town almost automatically. By the time I stopped in front of Emily's house, the decision had already solidified. No warning, no text, no chance for her to prepare a script. Mark answered the door. Surprise flashed across his face before he forced a neutral expression. "David, now's not a great—" "I'm coming in," I said, stepping past him before he could finish. Emily stood in the dining area, papers spread across the table. Her hands moved quickly, gathering them into a folder as soon as she saw me. "You should have called first," she muttered. Mark closed the door and hovered near it, clearly uneasy. I placed the printed camera stills from the bank on the table. Her eyes darted down, then back up. "What is this supposed to mean?" she asked. "It means I saw what happened yesterday morning." Emily's chin trembled for a fraction of a second. Then came the shift, small, practiced, deliberate. Shoulders drooped, voice softened. "I just needed help," she whispered. "You never listen to what I go through." The familiar tactic scraped against every nerve. Turning herself into the wounded party. Redirecting blame. Making the problem about my failure to understand her needs. Mark stepped forward, ready to mediate. "This whole thing has been blown out of proportion." Emily was overwhelmed. "She thought she was following what you wanted." "That's not true," I said. Neither of them responded immediately. Emily's eyes glistened, and she clutched the folder tighter. "I'm your daughter," she said. "Why would I ever try to hurt you?" The question wasn't meant to seek truth. It was meant to deflect it. "No more changes to my accounts," I said. "No more documents. No more attempts to access anything under my name." Emily shook her head, tears spilling, but still no acknowledgement of the actions themselves. "You're making me look like a criminal," she cried. "You did that on your own," I said quietly. Mark tried again. "Let's step outside and talk calmly." "No," I answered. "This conversation stays here." The silence that followed wasn't calm, it was stalled resistance. Emily's tears kept coming, but she never said the one sentence that mattered: "I'm sorry." She didn't even attempt an explanation beyond the claim that I never listened. Nothing about the scene suggested remorse or reconsideration, only fear of consequences. Walking toward the door, I felt her stare on my back. "Dad, don't leave like this," she said, voice breaking. But she still didn't take responsibility. Not for the forged signature. Not for the attempted withdrawals. Not for cornering me in front of a room full of people. Malcolm placed the final stack of documents in front of me, each page marked where a signature or initial was required. The forms revoked every access Emily and Mark held, formal, electronic, or implied. My pen moved steadily, no pauses, no wavering. A month earlier, I might have hesitated. Not now. By afternoon, the bank emailed confirmation. The branch manager followed with a call. "We've initiated an internal fraud investigation, Mr. Mercer," he said. "All attempted activity under the disputed authorization has been locked. You'll receive written notice within 2 business days." A muted yes left my mouth. Part of me braced for the reality that came with those words. This wasn't simply financial housekeeping, this was the moment the shape of my family changed. Later that night, Laura sat beside me at the kitchen table, her elbows resting on the wood, as she tried to put thoughts into a coherent line. "She's our daughter," she murmured. I knew she was frustrated. I didn't know it was this. "She crossed the line," I said gently. "I know," she whispered. "I just didn't think she'd ever cross it with you." The grief in her voice didn't accuse me of anything, yet it still pierced. Our marriage had weathered past strains, but this one felt different, like something had split beneath the surface. Not anger, not blame, just the end of an illusion we'd both held on to too long. She lowered her head into her hands. I reached out but stopped halfway, unsure whether the gesture would help or deepen the fracture building between us. The next morning, an update from Malcolm arrived. "Mark's business loan application has been suspended," he wrote. The bank flagged his file after reviewing the incident. Consequences began landing quickly. Emily's attempt to reroute funds left a record that wouldn't fade. The bank listed her name under an internal fraud watch, which meant accounts she opened in the future might require additional scrutiny. The weight of it all sat heavy, though not in the same way as before. This was the cost of boundaries long overdue. Evan visited that afternoon carrying a small grocery bag from Laura. He stood in the doorway, fidgeting. "I'm glad you didn't ignore me," he said. Those 8 words settled somewhere deep. Out of everyone in that family, a boy barely in his teens was the only one who recognized wrongdoing for what it was. "You helped more than you know," I told him. He smiled a little, then handed over the bag, and jogged back to the car, waiting at the curb. The house felt different once he left. Not emptier, just clearer. During the following days, life steadied into a rhythm. My job at the automotive plant gave me structure. I signed up for a weekend hiking class, run by a local outdoor group. Malcolm and I worked through follow-up paperwork. Carla checked in occasionally, never overstepping, never prying. Our conversations occupied a new lane, practical, friendly, respectful. Emily didn't call. Not once. Messages had come earlier in the week, brimming with anger, guilt, and attempts to rewrite the narrative. But Malcolm advised me not to respond. Eventually, she stopped. Laura spoke to her separately, though those conversations left her drained. Some nights she returned home quiet, unable to articulate what had been said. I didn't press. Marriage often means sharing burdens, but not every wound can be dissected out loud. Weeks passed before the investigator at the bank called to finalize his report. "The account is secure," he said. "All authorizations have been restored to your name alone. We've documented the attempted fraud. If any future disputes arise, this file protects you." After the call ended, I stood by the living room window for a long time. The relief didn't come as a rush. It came slowly, the way air returns after being held too long. Emily's distance felt permanent now. Not by my choice, not entirely, but by the simple truth that trust once shattered doesn't mend on demand. I didn't wish her harm. I didn't wish her suffering. But the boundary had to hold, or nothing in my life would ever stabilize again. That evening, the house greeted me with a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. I walked up the front steps, keys in hand. The lock turned smoothly, a small, ordinary motion. Stepping across the threshold, I felt something shift. Not triumph, not bitterness. Just a calm that came from knowing no one else had a claim to this space or to the decisions that shaped my future. For the first time in a long while, the silence felt earned, not imposed.